Hello. I have a great topic that I want to talk with you about today, and it is the holiday reign of terror. How many of us think of the holidays in this way? Stay tuned. We're going to get into this topic, and we're going to help everybody learn how to avoid this holiday reign of terror. I want to introduce to you right now one of my favorite doctors, and of course the coach, my health coach that I see more regularly than anyone else. And her name is Dr. Elise Hernandez. Dr. Elise.
Hello. Excited to be here with you, Miss Gail.
Wonderful. It is so good to have you here today. And you're here with the Dynamic Divas of Destiny. We're going to talk about this holiday reign of terror. Oh my goodness. Would you give us just a little background on who you are and why you think this topic is so important at this time of year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a doctor of chiropractic. So I have an office right here in Arlington, Texas. And, through the last 6 or 7 years of taking care of patients, what we tend to see is around this time of year, we have more cardiac events. We have more depression. We have more diabetes diagnoses. We have more chronic pain and really just more chronic illness than any other time of year. And part of that is because of what we call the holiday reign of terror. And so we, at some point, have taken the holidays, meaning Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and we've turned the holidays into the holiday months. And so what is meant to be one day, like Christmas, turns into 6, 8, 10 weeks of terror on our bodies as we engage in maybe more gluttonous activities. So we certainly drink a little bit more this time of year. We are a little bit more stressed out this time of year, not only with I always like to say with in-laws coming into town and outlaws coming into town. And so family coming into town and, presence and the financial burden of the holidays sometimes. And then, of course, just eating poorly and sometimes even being more sedentary with more days off. And so it's really this time of year where we see more sickness and we see people really lose track when it comes to their health. And then the crazy part about it is we think it's okay when January comes around to say, oh, I'm going to have all of these resolutions, etc., as if that's going to erase the past 6, 8, 10 weeks of damage that we've just done on our bodies.
Well, that is a powerful thought. 6 weeks of damage, and we have a resolution, and we're going to do better. But then other things happen. Birthdays happen, and weddings happen, and various kinds of celebrations happen. And then what happens to us then? We're back into celebration mode.
And what tends to happen is here we are, and that ends up taking up between St. Patrick's Day and, like you said, weddings and celebrations and birthdays, and then here we are in 3 months out of the year we're acting in this way, and so we're destroying our bodies 25% of the time. And what ends up happening is our lifespan is supposed to be 100 years, and we literally end up taking years off of our life and quality off of our life as well. And so I think that's the importance of this topic, and that's why I'm really excited to talk with everybody about this topic, and not only talk about, the problem, but really give some palpable solutions that you can start to apply in your life to make sure that you still celebrate and you still have all of the fun, but you're maintaining your health in the process.
Absolutely. And that's certainly what we're about with Dynamic Divas of Destiny. We are about changing our mindset. And a lot of the mindset is just knowing, understanding, seeing something, kind of shocking like holiday reign of terror, understanding where it comes from and what it means. What can we do about it? How do we become not a victim, but victorious over this reign of terror? And then how do we pass on that legacy for our families? Those are the things that we want to talk about. And you are the exact right person to do this for us. So just want to talk a little bit about who you are, how you got into this magnificent, I call it a ministry, but it is also your profession of helping people avoid destructive behaviors when it comes to your health and when it comes to your mindset, actually. So how did you get here, Dr. Elise?
Yeah. So I always tell people I became a chiropractor when I was 15. And so when I was 15, I saw my grandfather's health really start to deteriorate. And, what was just back pain for him and I say just very loosely, epidurals and pain medications turned into organ failure. And no doctor ever sat down and asked the question, why? And I think when you look back through my grandfather's life, if he knew differently, he would have done differently. And so I think the first problem that we run into is a lot of people perhaps don't know or don't understand how much damage bad habits actually have on our health, especially when you're young. And so when you're teens, 20s, 30s, I don't think you recognize just that one piece of cake, what it does to you. Otherwise, I don't think we'd eat it, and I don't think we'd give it to our kids.
One piece of cake. Oh, I can't wait to hear the rest of this story. But you hit on something that's really very important. You watched your grandfather. Yes. And we're in a position now, as we learn more and more, to help generations. We can help those who are older, for young people who still have, grandparents who are living through experiencing some of the results of their health habits from their youth. There's still time. We can still help. But mostly, as mothers and grandmothers, we have, those millennials who maybe weren't taught how to take care of their bodies. And the millennials are now having their own children. And so we can have our children and our grandchildren. That is really the message and the mission of Dynamic Divas. And I know, Dr. Elise, that's your mission also.
Yes. And so we align very well with that, Ms. Gail. So we talk about in our office 3 generations of health. And so we want to get 3 generations in our office living the way that we live, taking care of ourselves, because that's what it's going to take to truly change healthcare and to truly change our world. You look out there and you look at the amount of 2/3 of Americans are obese. Right now, your chances of getting cancer as a woman is 1 in 3. Your chances of getting cancer as a man is 1 in 2. That's from the American Cancer Society. If you don't get cancer, you'll probably have heart disease. And, underlying those issues is, diabetes and high cholesterol and chronic pain. And so we have a big job to do. And we have to start to recognize, you just said this, we have to recognize it's our responsibility, and it's never too late to change. If you have breath in your body, God is still in you, and God can work and God can heal you. We just have to take the responsibility and start to make change in our health and in our lives overall.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I just have to throw in a little bit of my own personal testimony here. I have been following Dr. Elise and others like her throughout the whole country. There are wonderful, and you are part of an organization called Maximize Living. These are the chiropractors who all follow kind of the same methodologies and protocols, and I call it just mindset, helping their patients do more than just come and get adjusted when they have a backache. I go every single week. And what I have found over the years, I am 69 years old. I am not on any medication. And I wake up every morning feeling good because I go to bed at night and sleep well. Now, that has to be the goal for your retirement years. I think anyone who gets there health-wise is probably going to be pretty happy. And so I can say, Dr. Elise, because of you and others like you, my testimony is it works. So I want to thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you don't have to thank me, Gail, because you're the one who chose to change. And I think that's the biggest thing. And in order to choose that, what I want the listeners to hear is you have to have a big enough why. And so you have to have a big enough vision for your life in order to start to break the habits that you've really been shackled to for probably most of your life. And so when they sit down with me and I say, what's your goal? And they say, well, my goal is to lose, 20 pounds. And I say, great, that's a good what, but what's the why? Why? pounds. And so then they'll say, oh, I don't know, just to feel better. Well, that's a small why. But what if your why is because you've seen your grandmother or your aunt get breast cancer? You've seen, what's going to happen if you don't choose your ways. Or it might just be, like you just said, Gail, I think this is so powerful. We go through our 20s and our 30s, and we don't think about what we're doing to our body. And those are the years where we're working hard. And then we get to be, 50, 60, and we go and we retire. And all of a sudden we have this free time, and we're supposed to be celebrating what you said your husband calls the golden years, and instead you're glued to medications and you're in pain and you can't get up, you can't fly, you can't play golf, you can't sew, you can't dance, you can't do any of these things because you didn't put the time and effort into your health in the first place. And so I think your why, behind making these changes is the first thing that we want to do, and developing really a compelling vision for your health and for your future.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And before we go any further, we have to at least identify a couple of culprits, maybe the main one in this reign of terror. And we also want to have kind of a call to action. So what are we going to do about it? Thanksgiving is just, 2 weeks away? Is it 2 weeks even? Is it one? Wow, I'm losing track of time. So what can we do? Are there things we can do right away? So first, let's talk about the culprit. And I just call this the killer is sugar. Can you just briefly, we're going to go much more into sugar on some of our other live streams that we do, but just briefly, how bad is sugar?
Yeah, sugar is the number one killer, period. If there's one thing that I could have every single person do that I meet, it is cut out the sugar. And so right now, the average person consumes 22 teaspoons of sugar daily. And when you look at our oldest ancestors, they consumed 20 teaspoons of sugar maybe in a year. And so the amount of sugar that we consume daily and even yearly, so that means that for the average woman, you're consuming about half your body weight in sugar every single year. And the effects that that's having on your cells, the effects that that's having on chronic inflammation, and really, feeding into things like obesity and diabetes, which then makes you more susceptible to, on average, 60 different chronic diseases. It just doesn't make any sense to consume sugar, especially when there's things that you can do that are just as delicious that don't have that effect on your body overall.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's quite a message. And again, I can testify that you convinced me almost a year and a half ago to get off the sugar and get off the grains. And the first response is always, are you kidding? Then what do we have to eat? Right. But the answer is lots of good, healthy, wholesome, delicious food is what you have to eat. And
I'll add in there too, a lot of people say, well, I don't eat sugar. And I'm like, oh. And so what we do in our office, I love to do it, is a food diary with people. So I have people write down 7 days of what they're consuming. And you don't think you're having sugar because you're not taking white granules and pouring it into your coffee. But a lot of people don't recognize there's so many hidden sugars. And so sugar within your boxed foods, within your condiments, and then, like you said, grains. And so bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, all of these things break down into your sugar. And unfortunately, a whole grain that might not have been so bad years ago is now totally detrimental to our health for several reasons. Number one is just because we're chronically inflamed from the time we enter the world. But number two is because of the glyphosate that's on something like wheat, which we're not talking about that right now, but pesticides make us very inflamed as well. But the idea is we really want to minimize not only like white sugar, but we want to minimize other sources of sugar, other things that break down into sugar.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And Dr. Elise, I know on your website, Health Warriors, I'm going to show that again, you have lots of more details and resources as to where you can go to find the information and actually health, because just like Dynamic Divas is a community of women who come together and we're determined we're going to be our healthiest and our wealthiest selves. Your community, Health Warriors, is a community of people who come together and decide, we're going to be healthy.
Yes.
And you cannot do it alone. You need to be in community in order to get it done. So thank you so much. We're going to talk about one more concept before we go. You got to revamp your menu. And that someone may ask, can that be done at this late date? We all have already planned what we're going to have for Thanksgiving dinner. What do you have to say to that? Can we still revamp our menu?
Absolutely. It's just about knowing how, and the how isn't as hard as you think it is. So, I know that you asked this question earlier, Gail, and I thought it was really powerful. Let's take a typical Thanksgiving menu and let's look. So your turkey, super easy. You're probably not adding anything to your turkey that's bad. I do choose to go online and get a free range turkey just because they're a little bit more expensive. I think turkey is probably one of the meats that's less toxic than things like pork and red meat. So you can get away with getting it conventionally. I just choose to get mine free range. Mm-hmm. And then you look at something like your maybe mashed potatoes. That might be next on the list. And so instead of doing mashed potatoes, in my household, we opt for either mashed sweet potatoes, which even though, that still does have a little bit of sugar in it, it's a little bit better than your typical white potato. Or if you wanted to go totally sugar-free, you could do something like a mashed cauliflower. And so believe it or not, whipped cauliflower is actually pretty good. And whenever I'm looking for recipes, I always Google keto. I'm not always trying to be keto because I don't think that my body needs to go into ketosis, meaning it doesn't need to be always running on ketones. And that's a whole topic for another
broadcast, yes.
But keto recipes tend to be a little bit higher in fat, of course, and they tend to be sugar-free, grain-free. And so that's how I kind of swap out recipes. I promise you, no matter what you're eating, there's a way to make it healthy. And so we do that with mashed potatoes. Let's see, cranberry sauce. I'm going to give this recipe to you, Gail, and you can post it on there. But cranberry sauce is so easy to make homemade, super delicious, no sugar added to it. The part that gets a little fuzzy maybe for people is when you start looking at something like mac and cheese or maybe like green bean casserole is another big one for Thanksgiving. For mac and cheese, we use chickpea pasta.
Mm-hmm. I've tried that.
Yeah, and it's good. And you can make your own cheese sauce. I make my own cheese sauce at home. It's super easy to make. You just make some chickpea pasta, you put the cheese on top of it, and there you go. You have your mac and cheese. And then green bean casserole, you just want to look for better quality ingredients. So instead of using like the Campbell's mushroom soup, they do have organic mushroom soups that don't have any sugar or bad things added to it. And then besides that, when you look at something like breadcrumbs, what I like to do is instead put like crushed almonds on top of it as like a crunchy topping. So there's always an alternative. You just kind of have to get creative with what you're doing.
Those are great tips. And I'm sure, again, on your website, your Facebook page, are probably some links that people can go to and find many, many good recipes.
And you can always ask questions too. And we love to answer questions on there. Yeah, and so some of the swaps for sweeteners that you can use, just so you know, instead of using sugar, in my house, we have xylitol, erythritol, and honey. And so the three that we use. And I made chocolate chip cookies this past weekend. I made banana bread the weekend before. I'm going to make a pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving, all sugar-free, all grain-free. We make like a crust. The staples that I have in my pantry, I always have almond flour and I always have coconut flour. So between almond flour and coconut flour, I can get most desserts done. And I even started looking into a keto pecan pie that I just found. And then also a keto custard tart. So it's kind of one of those custards with a little tart on the bottom and to put some fruit on top of that. So many things that you can make. I'd say everything you can make grain-free, sugar-free, and delicious.
Wonderful. And I have tasted some of the recipes because you do have a recipe night at there in at your office, and some of them are delicious. And I will just add the one that we found, because my husband had one, don't mess with my dressing. We did cornbread dressing, But we found that, is it Simple Mills that makes the almond bread?
Yes.
And it's a mix, because I'm not really one to bake. I don't like measuring all the stuff, but this, the dry ingredients are already put together for you, and you put the wet, your eggs and your oils and your water together. It makes great bread that really has sort of the texture of cornbread. And I put that in dressing,
I love
recipe,
that.
and my husband said, I will live with this, which is great praise from him. So it can all be done.
Yeah, and that brand Simple Mills is really good. That's also like if you have people coming over and you're doing hors d'oeuvres, they have crackers. So those are the crackers that I get, and they have all different flavors of crackers. So you have your cheese and your crackers, all grain free. And so it's super easy to put together a grain free, sugar free Thanksgiving meal. And even if you don't use that, sometimes people like bread just as one of their side dishes. And that's a great option, just for, instead of having like your rolls, your dinner rolls, you have the almond flour bread.
Absolutely. And it's delicious with olive oil and garlic, any kind of, there are all kinds of things, the garlic, of course, very good for you during the boosting your immune system and all of that good stuff. There are ways to do this. And we in community are absolutely committed to helping each other do that. So very good. What I want to ask, and you have said it so beautifully, Dr. Elise, let's have your questions. If you have, really, I've told you that my big one was, what do I do about cornbread dressing? If you have just one thing, and Dr. Elise has mentioned the mac and cheese, she's mentioned the cranberry sauce. If you just have one thing that, wow, I really want to know what to do with this one thing, ask the question. We're going to be looking at the comments. We're going to be answering. We're going to provide resources to help us all do this, because we do not want to submit to this reign of terror during our holidays.
Yeah, and whenever I'm looking at a recipe, what I always look at, the first thing I look at is the oil. And so if something has like canola oil in it, I'm looking for replacing that with either butter, coconut oil, or avocado oil. So you're looking for oils, you're looking for what are the carbs, right, that you're going to replace out, and you're going to find a replacement for that, and then the sugar. And those are the three things. And if you can just replace those three things, again, you can make anything healthy.
Wow. The easy 1, 2, 3 step. Look at those three things, replace it with something healthy, and you're there.
Yes.
We can do this. Can we do this?
Yes, we can.
Yes. All together in community. It doesn't matter if you're in the Dynamic Divas community or get into the Health Warriors community. We're merging the two. But this is really all about us coming together and us deciding that someone in this family, and I love one of the little messages I got off your board that's said, if you didn't come from a healthy family, start one. And that is the call to action right now. If you've never had a healthy Thanksgiving and you've never had a healthy Christmas, let's start a new tradition.
Yes, I love that, Gail. I love it.
Great. Dr. Elise, we're going to have you back certainly, but any final words you want to say to Dynamic Divas of Destiny today?
Yeah, I'll say the last thing, just recognize that this is a journey. It's not a sprint it's not like one race that we're trying to win. This is a journey. It's an evolution. And if you can just make small changes over the course of time, you're going to be able to look back on yourself in 1, 3, 5, 10 years and say, wow, look how far I've come. And so just making those small changes, that's my suggestion too, and recognize there will be a day when you fall off and you do something that you miss a day of exercising, or you eat the donut at work, or whatever it is, and that's okay. It's just a matter of getting back on track and doing what you need to do again the next time.
Wonderful. Thank you. That is just great advice. And so in closing, let us hear from you. Let us hear the struggles you think you may have. Let's be very proactive about this. Get your recipe and get your ingredients there. And even if you just tried one thing that was different, that would be a victory for Thanksgiving. And by Christmas, you will be rolling in a healthy menu. That's the goal. And then we can start January 1st. Oh, wow. By January 1st, we will be on a whole different plane when it comes to our health. We're not going to let this tyrant get us all tangled up and destroy us over the holiday. And so that's what we want to do. We are the Dynamic Divas of Destiny. And I just want to encourage everyone, stay safe and stay tuned. You're going to hear lots more information in order to help us stay healthy and wealthy. Stay tuned, because that's what divas do. Dr. Elise, thank you so much. I've so enjoyed my time with you and can't wait until the next time. Bye-bye.